Tonight's lead, new audio that may have been recorded when the gunshots that killed Michael Brown occurred. NBC News has obtained audio from a man who says he was recording a message to a friend near the site of Michael Brown's shooting. And he says he ended up recording the fatal gunshots. NBC News has not authenticated this audio, but the lawyer for the man who recorded it says she has shared the recording with the FBI. Remember, the words spoken on this tape aren't important, but the sounds of the apparent gunfire in the background are. Take a listen.
You are pretty. You're so fine. Just going over some of your videos. How could I forget?
Again, NBC News has not confirmed that this is the sound of the shots that killed Michael Brown, nor do we know what happened immediately before or after this recording. But NBC's Ron Allen spoke with the lawyer of the man who made the tape. She says the FBI was interested, in quotes, in the recording, and what made the biggest impression on her was the pause in the gunfire.
And I think that what is important is, no matter how it's interpreted, there was a pause. There was a pause of 3 seconds. Now, what that pause means may mean something different. You know, as an attorney, I know that you have to argue both sides, and I can see arguments that could be made for both sides. However, the fact that there was a pause, that this was not just some sort of emotional bam, 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 and that's it. There was a pause.
And what could that be?
The pause, it could, to me, you have a chance to think. No matter what side of the coin you end up on, there was a moment of thought. And 3 seconds may seem like a short amount of time, but the entire incident that we've had recorded is 12 seconds, and that's a lot of gunfire. So that 3 seconds within that 12 seconds is a significant period of time. And there was a moment of contemplation by the shooter. Now, whether or not that contemplation, you know, what was going through his head, I have no way of knowing.
Again, we have not confirmed that this tape is a recording of the shooting, but as prosecutors present evidence to a grand jury, this could be a key piece of the puzzle. Take a listen to that recording one more time.
You are pretty. You're so fine. Just going over some of your videos. How could I forget?
There are still so many unanswered questions, but this recording could soon become part of the investigation into the tragic shooting death of Michael Brown. Joining me now from St. Louis is Trymaine Lee, national reporter for MSNBC.com, former prosecutor and current trial attorney Midwin Charles, and Eugene O'Donnell, professor of law and police study at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Midwin, let me start with you. How could this tape, how could it affect the investigation?
Well, if this tape is accurate, it really is a game changer. One of the things that I think is most important about this tape is that pause that the attorney just referenced. A pause is enough time for someone to form intent. If, as Officer Darren Wilson has said, that he was defending himself, or he felt that he was in fear, or even trying to apprehend Michael Brown, that pause is significant because it lets us know that he had time to either sort of stop and think and continue to pull the trigger. So I think that this is huge, if it's accurate, of course, if it's been authenticated. This is huge. This is a game changer. And Darren Wilson's attorney's job just got a little bit harder.
Eugene, we're told that the FBI now has the tape. What are investigators looking for?
Well, I think that the officer's account is going to matter a lot, and reports are going to matter a lot. Was this a defensive shooting or an apprehensive shooting? Was it a shooting to apprehend? And it seems to me it's probably an either or. Either there's a claim that at the time he fired, he believed his weapon was going to be taken. Bizarrely, if you can believe it, Missouri law appears to value human life even less than Florida. And there might actually be legal authority to shoot a fleeing person in this situation. But it would very much depend on what the officer's account was, official reporting. Certainly in all states, self-defense, if that's the claim, ends when it's clear that the threat no longer exists, and when someone withdraws. Once somebody withdraws and is leaving the altercation, then the law in most states is that we want the person to be brought to justice in a nonviolent way. Self-defense is sort of a situation where you have no choice.
Let me go to Midwin's point and the lawyer's point, and that is that assuming this tape is accurate, because we've not authenticated it, but assuming it's accurate, if the person was shot, wouldn't any shots after that not qualify at all for self-defense?
Right, if it's a self-defense claim.
Right.
If he's claiming, and I think it's either or, if he's claiming that he's firing at a violent fleeing felon who left, that may be a more murky area. Seems to me, though, if he claims self-defense, it's a self-defense shooting. Again, Missouri law appears to bizarrely leave open the possibility that an unarmed person posing no risk to the community who is accused of a felony could be shot fleeing.
All right. Well, Trymaine, what's the reaction to this tape been like in Ferguson?
When speaking to people here in the community, they've long believed that there were at least 10 shots that were fired at Michael Brown when he was apparently fleeing the officer. I spoke to one gentleman who lives in the neighborhood, and he told me days ago that he heard a boom, 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 and then a pause, and then a boom, boom, boom. And it seems that, again, if this is authentic, that it kind of matches up with what various witnesses have said, that there was one shot from in the car, and then there were several shots while Michael Brown was running, and then at some point he turned around, and then other shots followed.
So you're saying, Trymaine, you're saying that you've talked to people in the neighborhood that are not this man that gave the tape, that has told you this even before we heard about this tape?
That's correct, and I didn't publish it before because I didn't have any reason to publish it necessarily. But I spoke to a gentleman and said he was outside, it was a nice sunny day, and that he heard the gunshots, and he boom, 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 a pause, and then several more shots.
Wow. Midwin, I mentioned that NBC hasn't authenticated this recording, but the lawyer for the man who recorded it says her client would be a good witness. Listen to this.
No doubt in your mind that this is real?
Absolutely not. He's a very solid citizen, he's, I think that if it came to testifying, he would be a very reliable witness, and he has no reason to make it up.
Do you think the grand jury will hear from this witness?
It depends on whether or not the prosecutor will take this information and put it in front of the grand jury.
Which is totally up to the prosecutor.
Absolutely. They have wide latitude. They have full discretion. And as you know, it's secret. So whether it goes before the grand jury or not, we will never know. But let's assume that it does. What I think is most interesting about this tape and about the witness, as she just said, is he's disinterested. He doesn't have a stake in this. He was in the middle of a video chat with a girl recording it, and it just so happened that these shots rang out in the background. So I can't see anyone trying to discredit at least his motives.
Ken, this pause in the gunshot on this new tape seems to match what we've heard from some witnesses, and I think Trymaine had referred to that, Eugene. But let me play some others that have said this.
I witnessed the police chase after the guy full force. He was unarmed. He ran for his life. They shot him, and he fell. He put his arms up to let them know he was compliant and that he was unarmed, and they shot him twice more, and he fell to the ground and died.
The officer gets out of his vehicle, and he pursues him. As he's following him, he's shooting at him. And Michael's body jerks as if he was hit, and then he turns around and he put his hands up. And the officer continued to walk up on him and shoot him until he goes all the way down to the ground.
They seem to be saying, these are eyewitnesses, that there was a pause. Eugene?
Yeah, I mean, the point is absolutely correct that the person that you rely on, sometimes even excessively in a case like this, is somebody with no agenda, somebody who has no connection. It gets an outsized amount of attention. So you have this objective evidence, assuming that it has some validity, and then really you're just trying to compare statements of people with this objective evidence. So obviously, if this evidence clearly points in one direction, and the witnesses are saying things that are consistent with that, this buttresses the accounts of the witnesses and would be a crucial piece of evidence.
Now, Trymaine, last night there were no arrests, no problems on the street. Do you expect that will continue?
I think so. The tone and temperature here has shifted from those terrible days a week ago, and now people are pivoting and they're kind of focusing on the case, waiting for more details such as this, which should be noted that the police department hasn't released any data at all, but we've relied on the autopsy from the parents and now more witness statements. But again, people are pivoting from those emotional days, and now they're focusing on the case, the minutia of the case, the grand jury hearing evidence, and so on. So I expect things to continue to be cool and calm. You never know. But if, the last few nights are an indication, we're in for a nice, peaceful stretch.
Now, Midwin, let me go back to something you referenced. The Missouri statute on law enforcement officers' use of deadly force. It seems very broad. It says deadly force is, quote, and I'm quoting this, justified only when he reasonably believes that such use of deadly force is immediately necessary to effect the arrest, and also reasonably believes that the person to be arrested, A, has committed or attempted to commit a felony, or B, is attempting to escape by use of a deadly weapon, or may otherwise endanger life or inflict serious physical injury unless arrested without delay. Now, how will this statute affect the grand jury investigation?
Well, I think the last 2 points that you pointed out about whether or not he was fleeing with armed and dangerous, or whether he posed a threat to the community, that didn't seem to exist. And even if this officer looked at the situation and tried to assess it, you have to ask yourself, after how many bullets do you get to recognize whether someone is a threat to you or to the public? And I think that's what's the most disturbing thing about this. Michael Brown was unarmed, and we have a barrage of bullets that he was killed by, which is corroborated by at least 3 different autopsies. But this statute, I think, when you look at it in its totality, there are a lot of ands and there are a lot of ors. And the most important ors there are whether or not Michael Brown posed a threat to the community if he were someone to flee, and whether or not this police officer understood that Michael Brown had allegedly just committed a strong arm robbery. So there's so many variables here that we're just not clear on.
But a strong arm robbery would not be would fall within what is outlined in this statute.
Yes, yes. And so it's one of those things where we have to understand what is the police officer's point of view, and we don't have that because we have this sort of fictitious incident report.
I'm going to have to leave it there. Trymaine Lee and Midwin Charles and Eugene O'Donnell, thank you all for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.